Nigeria's federal, state and local governments have received the sum of 369 billion naira from the Federation account for the month of November. Addressing newsmen in Abuja, the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, said that gross statutory revenue for the month, which stood at 297 billion naira, declined by over 102 billion naira compared with what was received in October. She, however, promised that government is looking at ways of increasing revenues from the non-oil sector.
For the FAC that we've just completed, December 2015, the gross statutory revenue, 303.78 billion, from which was deducted 7% cost of collection to Nigeria Customs Service, 3.417 billion, 4% cost of collection to Federal Inland Revenue Service, 2.024 billion, 4% cost of collection to DPR, 1.589 billion, NMPC refund to the federal government, 6.330 billion. That gave a net statutory allocation of 290.42 billion, which is being distributed as follows. The federal government of Nigeria, 139,501. State governments, 70.757 billion. Local governments, 54.551 billion. Then derivation, 25.611 billion. Value added tax, the gross collection, 61.181 billion, from which a 4% cost of collection to the Federal Inland Revenue Service was made, 2.447 billion. Net distributable VAT, 58.734 billion. Distributed as follows. The federal government of Nigeria, 8.810. State governments, 29.367. Local governments, 20.557. The grand totals are as follows. Statutory gross revenue, 297.45. VAT, 61.61, giving a total distribution of 358,631. There was also an exchange rate gain of 4.921 billion and an NMPC refund of 6.330 billion. That gave a grand total of 369,882 billion. This compares with the previous month where we had 473.82 billion. Added to that, there was the distribution of $150 million being LNG dividend that had previously been approved by the National Economic Council. That has also been shared today. Finally, the balance in the excess crude account as at the 22nd of December 2015 is the same as last month, 2.258 billion.
Meanwhile, the Finance Minister, Kemi Adeosun, has said there are positive signs that the country is beginning to diversify away from its overdependence on oil. She said, judging from the figures that was made, the amount shared at this month's FAC, non-oil revenue sources are beginning to turn the corner.
Even though the revenues for the month are actually down, if you analyze it, non-oil is now really making a difference compared to oil. NMPC were, due to cash calls, only able to provide 60 billion this month. And non-oil is really now beginning to pick up and play its part. So I think for the long term of our economy, that's a very, very positive sign. And I think it's something that we should work together with, making sure that people are paying and remitting their taxes as and when due, improving collections in those non-oil revenue generating agencies, because those revenues are not as volatile. They're not subject to oil price, or they're more sustainable. And so it's one of the signs that we are looking for those non-oil revenues to be more and more stable and more significant and to keep growing. So I think that's our policy direction. We've said it, that we don't want to be relying on oil. We've all seen what happens. Oil goes up, we're very happy. Oil goes down, we're unhappy. That's not sustainable. And we want to build sustainability into the economy, and I believe that we're on par.
Nigeria President Muhammadu Buhari has presented the 2016 national budget before a joint session of the National Assembly. The 6.07 trillion naira budget proposal for 2016 was predicated on a $38 per barrel oil benchmark and a 197 naira exchange rate. It is an increase of about 40% from the previous budget of 4.357 trillion naira, which was presented to the National Assembly in 2014 by ex-President Goodluck Jonathan's administration. This marks the first time the president would address a joint session of the National Assembly since coming to power in May this year. While stating that the 2016 budget would focus on addressing youth unemployment and cater for the vulnerable, President Buhari said that Nigeria remains committed to diversification to build and reflate the Nigerian economy. Another highlight of the president's presentation was his announcement that petrol pump price would stay at 87 naira per litre for now. The National Assembly says it is ready to swiftly pass the 2016 budget to quickly boost the Nigerian economy. Now, reacting to the budget, Nigeria's main opposition party, the People's Democratic Party, PDP, has slammed the 2016 federal budget by President Muhammadu Buhari to the National Assembly. The PDP described the 6.8 trillion naira budget as a big fraud and executive conspiracy tailored towards mortgaging the future of the nation. PDP, in a statement by its National Publicity Secretary, Lisa Metu, hours after the budget presentation, questioned Buhari's decision to borrow 2 trillion naira, the biggest in the history of the nation, as the height of recklessness and deceit from a government that trends on propaganda. The party berated the federal government for trying to use their bogus welfare program and phantom capital projects as cover to siphon the funds to satisfy partisan interests, particularly to settle huge campaign debts. According to the PDP, by all standards, the 2016 budget, the first major economic policy outing of this government, is completely unrealistic and embellished with impracticable predications. Rights group Human Rights Watch has said the killing of hundreds of Shia Muslim members of the Islamic Movement of Nigeria by Nigerian Army from December 12 to 2015 appears to have been wholly unjustified. The group, in a press release on Wednesday, also said the Judicial Commission of Inquiry set up by the government should be sustainably independent and impartial to hold those responsible to account. Human Rights Watch interviewed 16 witnesses to the killings and 5 others, including local authorities, who said that Nigerian Army officials fired on Shia Muslim members of the group at 3 locations in Zaria in northeast Nigeria, while the army accused the sect members of attempting to assassinate the Chief of Army Staff, Lieutenant General Turku Buratai. The Islamic movement said soldiers opened fire on its members. The Islamic movement claimed that over 500 of their members were killed by the soldiers. However, the Nigerian authorities dispute that figure. The human rights group says at least 300 Shia sect members and likely many more were killed and hundreds more injured, citing witnesses in at least 2 of the sites and a hospital source. The group says soldiers quickly buried the bodies in mass graves without family members' permission, making it difficult to determine an accurate death toll. President Muhammadu Buhari has ordered the immediate payment of December salaries to all federal civil servants. His directive was made known by the Minister of Finance, Kemi Adeosun, who spoke at the end of the monthly Federation Account Allocation Committee meeting in Abuja. She said salaries were already being paid in response to the president's directive. Adeosun added that some workers have already started receiving their December salary as it became imperative due to the festive season. The United Nations has said violence in northeast Nigeria and neighboring countries targeted by Boko Haram has forced more than 1 million children out of school. According to the UN, this has also left them prey to abuse, abduction and recruitment by armed groups. More than 2,000 schools in Nigeria, Cameroon, Chad and Niger remain closed due to the conflict, and hundreds have been looted, damaged or destroyed, said the UN Children's Agency UNICEF. While hundreds of schools in northeast Nigeria have reopened in recent months, insecurity and fear of violence are preventing many teachers from resuming classes and discouraging parents from sending their children back to school. This is according to UNICEF. Even before the conflict, Nigeria had the highest number of out-of-school children globally, more than 10 million, said the UN Office for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs. The Nigerian government has slammed fresh criminal charges against the leader of the indigenous people of Biafra, Nnamdi Kanu. This comes after a federal high court released him unconditionally on December 17th. Among the charges leveled against him include treasonable felony, maintaining an unlawful society, and illegal possession of items. Kanu's case was filed before Justice Ahmed Mohammed of the Federal High Court, sitting in Abuja, the same court that granted him bail. The charges were filed by the Office of the Attorney General of the Federation and signed by the Federal Director of the Public Prosecution, Mohammed Diri. Justice Adeni Ademola had in a December 17 ruling ordered the unconditional release of Kanu since there was no pending charge against him after 2 months of him being in detention. We'll take a short break now. When we come back, we'll look at business and international stories. Please stay tuned.
Hello, you're welcome. You're watching the Funny White Man Show, which is the biggest, the brightest, and the most entertaining show in Africa.
Funny white man, funny white man, funny white man, but this way you talk, it's too much. Give me 5,000 man that you. It's too much. So you get it like, Messi move along the street. Yeah, Messi like that, I'm going girl. You know, my own people, actually. Yeah, fine, it's fun. I enjoy it. And I'm one of those very few, I'm forever taking it personal. I will listen 160 million Nigerians